Guys, welcome back to another episode of Who's Your Paranormal Guy, and today I have 3 really creepy, totally weird hospital ghost stories for you. But before we go into that, you guys like my new decorations here? This is not a real Ouija board, by the way, it's just decoration. And I also got this awesome Ouija board coffee mug that I'm very proud of. So I got the Ouija board on one side, and then on this side, it's backwards, but it says Ouija and then Mystifying Oracle. And yes, I will definitely be drinking this bad boy in public. I love it. Like, you've never seen a Ouija board coffee cup before? It's awesome. I'm actually not drinking coffee. It's apple cider, because, like, you totally have to have that in fall time. So, on to the stories. Now, I used to work in a hospital when I was in college, okay? Like, I wanted to go to school to be a nurse. I was actually taking nursing courses, and so I got a job at a hospital. I did a couple things. I started off in the kitchen, like making food for patients and things like that. And I worked on the floor a little bit as like a patient care tech. Which is basically kind of like a CNA. I would, help patients. Like if the families needed anything, like if they needed food or something, I'd go get them food. I just kind of like, taking care of not the patients, but like more of like the patients' families and getting the rooms ready and things like that. So I worked shoulder to shoulder with a lot of nurses, doctors, pharmacists, things like that, and I was always asking them, like the ones I was comfortable with, like, hey, do you guys have any paranormal stories? And believe me, if you've ever worked in a hospital or known anybody that has worked in a hospital, hospitals are hotbeds for paranormal activity. There's just a lot of emotions, good emotions, bad emotions, things that happen there, and it's just ripe for paranormal activity. So I have 3 really quick stories. The first one is the creepiest. This was told to me by a friend of mine, and she worked on the med surg floor, which is like medical surgical. Excuse me. And she told me this story, and it literally made my blood turn cold. It was so creepy. So she would tell me that she would have patients that would say that they would see this girl. And she would always be peeking around the curtain, because this was like on the med surg floor. There were like, I don't know, several beds, but they had like the curtains kind of like in the emergency room. They'd just have the curtains separating the beds, and they would see this girl peeking around the corner. And this is always like usually late at night. Now, the med surg floor is like where people would go to recover from surgery and things like that. So at first, she was just kind of like, oh, well, they're seeing this girl. They're under anesthesia. They're coming out of anesthesia, things like that. So she wasn't giving much credit to it. But the family started seeing this girl, too. Like, they would have family members come to her and say, like, we're seeing this girl, like, peeking around the curtain at us. And it's usually when there's nobody in the bed next to him. And that's not the creepiest part. The girl, like, the lady was, like, at first, she's like, okay, like, who's this little girl? Is she, like, from somebody's family member? And this one lady was giving her a description, and she seemed like she didn't want to tell my friend, that the RN, what she was actually seeing. So she told her that, she's like, this is going to sound crazy, but this little girl has, like, black eyes, and she's got, like, sharp, jagged, pointed teeth. And I was like, what? So this little girl that people were seeing run all over the medical surgical floor with black eyes, and like she was getting descriptions from patients, like patients' families, and the nurses started seeing this girl at night, and they would always see the back of her, like the back of her head, like walking down the hall, and she'd turn into a room or something like that. And they would also see her running from room to room, like across the hallway, and it was just like this blur of just like this little girl, but she had like pitch black eyes and sharp, pointed, jaggy teeth. And I'm just like, well, that's really creepy. So that's the first story. The second story is about another friend of mine who was a sterile tech, surgical tech, sterile tech, in the OR. And she worked the night shift. And she would always see this black shadow person just like running from room to room. And she would hear a noise in one of the empty surgical suites. And she would go in there, and she would see this black shadow, and it would just, like, run through the walls. And she would see it, like, in the hallways, and, like, none of the other nurses really, like, said that they saw it, and if they did, they wouldn't admit it. But she was like, I saw this thing everywhere. It was always in like the OR suites that were empty. So she would kind of prep the rooms for like the next like surgery the next day. She sterilized the things and things like that. So yeah, she would just see the shadow person. Just she never saw it like in the halls or anything, but it was always in the rooms. It would just be like running through the wall, or it would be like darting under the table, like the surgical table or something like that. Story number 2. Story number 3 is about a friend of mine who was a pharmacy technician, and she also worked the night shift. And she was always there with one pharmacist, and she would always hear this labored breathing, because it would usually be like 2 techs and 1 pharmacist at night, and get the meds ready for the next day and everything like that. And she said that they would hear this like in this one particular corner, which is like in the back of the pharmacy, in the corner. They were all so scared to go in this corner, because when they would go back there, they would hear this like labored heavy breathing, like sort of like that, and then like somebody was gasping kind of thing, and it was just all auditory. Like they never saw anything. Sometimes pill bottles would like fall off the shelf and stuff like that, but like they never like saw anything. It was always just like things that they would hear. And so I thought that was pretty creepy. So those are my 3 haunted hospital stories. I'm going to make a part 2 to this video, because there are a lot of other stories that I have to tell. So I'll make another video. But I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon. See you later. Bye.